It's 6:38.
All right, let's go ahead and formally call this meeting to order. It is at 6:38 on Monday, August 25th. Can we have a roll call? Lisa, would you please?
Jim Major, Ted Bowman,
Here.
Susan Dolan,
Here.
Janet Emerson,
Here.
Lisa Emerson here, Jason Green,
Here.
Steve Bender,
Here.
Sandra Hartwell,
Here.
Michael McDonough,
Here.
Charlotte Nelson, Mark Moore. Are you here?
I'm here.
Mark Moore's here. Mary Jane Penbuster, here. Greg Walters.
Here. All right, now is the portion of the meeting where we're going to open up for public comment. As we can see, we have one person and 3 minutes. And if there's anybody else, a total of 21 minutes all total for this portion. Brenda.
I just wanted to address it. A few weeks ago, the YouTube was brought up, and I explained to a couple of people that it was not on camera, and so I wanted to explain the YouTube account is youtube.com/City of Raytown. It does not have my name on it, although I subscribe to that channel, so you can see them on my channel, and that's just a check and balance for the city. And they are later on our account because we get a tape from Michael. We have to convert the tape. For instance, the last two, we've not gotten tapes from Michael, but I've talked with Michael and he's going to check on that for us. So we have to wait till we get that tape to convert to put it up on YouTube. But also there was a question about it being under my name. It's not, it's under PIO City of Raytown. So whoever comes in after me, it'll be very fluid. So I just wanted to address those, and had nothing to do with us trying to not put it up. It's just once we get the tape, we get it converted by our IT, and then I put it up. And it doesn't take long once I get the conversion.
All right, just for your information, the minutes as July 28th was not recorded, or that session wasn't recorded by Michael. Correct. And so you wouldn't be missing that one. It would have been just this last one.
July 28th.
Right, August 11th.
There's, the last one we had 2 parts that we've gotten tapes on.
Okay.
But I talked to Michael about getting those.
All right, great.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for Brenda then regarding it? Thanks. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on with officers' report. And as chair, I told everybody last session that I would be working on the request for proposals for attorneys. I have got that about 75% written. I, like you all, are a very busy person, so I was not able to finish it like I hoped before this meeting. But I will finish it by this weekend, get a copy out to everybody and for review, and then hopefully we can get it approved at the next meeting. And other than that, I don't have anything else to report at this time. Secretary?
In the last minutes, I noticed at the very end I did not put Mr. Aju's last name, so I would like to add that in there as, I suppose, an amendment or friendly amendment or what have you before we approve them. And otherwise, the last couple of meetings, as I reported last time, I have been adding in the sections that we approve underneath where it shows who, that the voting, yays and nays, and then what we approved. I've been doing that the last couple meetings, but I did not do it on the initial sections that we approved, so I'd like approval or maybe a motion now or a motion in a future meeting to go back and amend our old minutes to insert the sections as they were worded when we approved them, so we can have everything square.
you making a motion then?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. All right, do we have a second? Second. All right, thank you. This is a motion
To
add in the,
motion to edit the previous minutes to include the votes
Approved.
as you reported. Right.
and the approved sections and articles, correct? Is that right? Okay. And you're going to second that?
Your intent is to bring them back for approval, correct?
Yes.
Any discussions about that? Then we'll take a vote on that one. And then I'd like to keep the minutes for this meeting separate from that.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Jason Green,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Ted Bowen,
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Okay, and now I'm going to check with everybody else on this. I talked with Lisa a little bit. On the minutes, under section 310 legislative procedures, the only thing that I might have possibly found, and I just want to concur with anybody else on the commission, is at the last sentence where it says, inspected by the people in the office of city clerk. I had the word "the" before city clerk. Does anybody else have that? If not, we can just leave the minutes as they are. It's 310E in the very last sentence, or second to last sentence, I'm sorry. For some reason, I put the word "the" before city clerk. I didn't know if anybody else had. If nobody else has, then we can leave it as it is. Does anybody else have the word "the"?
In the printed minutes here?
No, in anything that they might have taken notes of that might have said that that word was missed.
It says you're talking about section G.
What's that?
310G.
No. This is 10E,
Oh, E.
the second to last sentence. I'm just trying to confirm that,
Office of City Clerk.
yeah, office of city clerk, or is it office of the city clerk? What was actually said, and I guess Lisa can look at the recording and verify it, so.
I can go back and look at it.
We'll let her review that one and then just update it, but then what I'm trying to do is still be able to approve the minutes as they are with that one minor correction if it is in the recording, if that's okay.
Is she gonna look at it right now? Or
No, she can look at it. No, we can.
Listen to the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah. Just bring it back next meeting.
All right, we'll bring that.
She had another correction she wanted to make anyway.
All right. So do we want to postpone approving the minutes until next meeting? We're open for a motion or something.
I motion that I look and make sure what word was there and whatnot, and either way, otherwise, I motion we approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I second
All right, thank you, Jan.
Was the motion to approve
Yes,
with,
her check. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing, it is or isn't there. All right, any other further discussion of the minutes? Lisa, can you call the roll?
Michael McDonough,
yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
it. Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes. Steve
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Ted Bowen.
Yes.
All right, Mark, have we spent any more money?
I don't think we have,
Do you have
but
a
we're
treasure?
going to.
Okay, there you go. You want to at least state the balance in the account?
Balance in account is still $9,900.
Does everybody approve of that since it's a continuation of the same number? Is that okay with that? All right. Old business, I kind of talked about the documents for the attorney. The only other thing I had as miscellaneous was the fact that we passed on section 310G. We have a suggested wording in the packet that we got today, and I didn't know, Jason, if you had an opportunity to relook at this. I know that this one section might have to be tied to a referendum if that gets put into the charter, because it might keep something from being approved immediately. And whereas, Janet, is this your suggestion as far as the writing of section 10G?
Yes.
Okay. You want to go ahead and read it, and then we can at least have a small discussion on it before we go forward?
Every adopted ordinance or resolution shall take effect and be in force at the expiration of 30 days after adoption or at any later date specified therein. Emergency ordinances shall take effect and be in force upon adoption or at a later date specified therein.
Did you have anything in there with the authentication and reporting?
Well, that also should be recorded by the clerk as later described. It should have that other in there also. That should be authenticated by the mayor and clerk and filed.
Okay, so after the date specified therein, you're saying we should add, shall be authenticated by the mayor and city clerk and filed?
Yes.
Has everybody followed that? Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair, we're going to second that.
Yeah,
Questions?
Okay. So pretty much, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, this is a clarification here. But the, Article 3, Section G here.
310G.
Yeah, rather, yeah, 10G. On the effective date, I'm trying to pull up here a couple of papers here, I want to get this, my question straight, so bear with me. they adopt an ordinance, or there's a 30-day extenuation, if you will, like it doesn't become official until after 30 days?
Correct, that's what she suggested.
Okay, may I ask why that was added?
I think that the people should have a chance to look it over and make sure that that's what they want before it goes into effect.
And I agree with you, but can I give you an example of how that has an unintended consequence? This last Board of Alderman meeting, we had a gentleman who was applying for a conditional use permit for the old Adams Toyota, and because planning and zoning had a situation where they couldn't meet quorum, this process was delayed an additional 2 weeks. So what happened was we went ahead and tried to suspend the rules to do the first and the second reading at the same meeting, because this gentleman would have had to pay $400,000 of capital gains taxes if this resolution wasn't passed within that week, this last week period. And the reason we were kind of hamstringed was because, at no fault of this gentleman's own, that there wasn't a quorum at planning and zoning. And he pretty much flatly said this: if I can't get this approved this week, I'm not going to pay $400,000 of capital gains tax, because it had to do with his business. It might be information death, but it was cash transactions. So he said if you couldn't get this approved and run through, he wasn't going to invest in that plot, that old space. And so pretty much if I see this going in the way it is, that would pretty much hamstring the Board of Aldermen in terms of making those decisions, and possibly, maybe hurt a business opportunity. So, and I see why you wrote that in there, I really do. I just see there could be some unintended consequences to that, and that's the concern that I have about the extenuating the 30 days.
Okay, Jeff, before you respond, Sandy.
Jason, just planning and zoning, I just want to clarify something. At the last planning and zoning meeting, we did have a quorum. The problem was the man did not get his paperwork in on time. It wasn't because of there not being a quorum. He just didn't get it in on time.
Well, I'm just repeating what I was told,
I know.
and so, but I appreciate you letting me know, because I was told last meeting that was the case, and so.
No, we had a quorum.
That's one of the
It
issues.
passed.
Okay, well, I do, yeah, obviously, but, because I got to read that component. But again,
Excuse me.
yeah, sure.
The month before was when he wanted it in then, so he could get it on last week's
Yeah.
council meeting, but he didn't get his paperwork in time, so they were trying to speed that
I
up.
see. Okay, well, and I appreciate the clarification on that. Now, I was just pointing to that, though, as an example of a possible opportunity that, if there's something in the ordinance or something that needs to be pushed through for, potential business at some point, if you put the 30-day time limit on there, I think that could possibly create unintentional consequences. I guess is what I'm getting at. And I guess I gave that example that I thought was going to work, that maybe is not. So anyway, but still, I think the principle of the argument, I think, remains the same. So anyway, I just wanted to express that. And if anyone has want to verify anything on that, please do.
All right, Janet, then Ted.
On the emergency ordinances, that would have been an emergency ordinance because they would have had the first and second reading at the same time. And that's in there. They should take effect.
Can we double check? I guess, I think you may be right on the emergency ordinance, and if we define that as an emergency ordinance. I mean, if we have it written down,
If you
yeah.
do first and second,
Yeah. Okay, and I think you're right on that. And again, though, yeah, I wanted to bring this up, because that's a concern that I have on that.
All right, Ted. Go ahead, Ted.
Is this a correction of something we've already done?
No, we
Or is it
have.
something we didn't finish?
We didn't finish, we passed on it last session.
Okay.
310G we passed, and that's bringing it up.
My only other question or observation is if we design the process for creating the ordinances, as we discussed, to give people time before they're passed, if once they're passed, there's another 30 days, there is no recourse left after that. I don't understand the purpose of the 30 days, I guess. Because if we wait between meetings, as we discussed, for 2 readings, so that people have an
then I'll go to Sandy.
My point was the same as Janice, so next.
Okay, and that point is that you want to give the people some time to respond to it, which would be.
My point, Steve, was that, Mr. Chairman, was that if indeed there were an emergency, it would be an emergency ordinance, and what's if, you know. I don't clearly understand the 30 days need for wait. And I was reviewing your all's work here, because I missed a couple of meetings, but as I recall, the ordinances are read in full 2 times before being passed or put up for a final vote, correct?
Not in full, but in title and summary.
Okay, and therein lies possibly a reason for the 30 days.
Well,
Because of a lack of clarification, perhaps somebody came into the decision-making process late in the game and only had an opportunity to hear the ordinance read by title and in summary. So with that in mind, I can see the need for the 30 days, and still the option remains for the passage of an emergency ordinance if one exists, if the need for one exists. That's my take on it. Thank you.
Sandy?
There is always going to be somebody that doesn't like the ordinances that are passed. And if you read it twice, and it's available for people to come up to City Hall and look at and read through prior to the second meeting, I don't see a problem with not having that 30 days on it. They have 2 weeks to do that.
Okay. The only other thing I might add to this is with the mayor having the power of veto, we're automatically giving him, I believe, 7 days before final signage. So I mean, if we say it takes effect immediately, then we're still giving the mayor a chance to veto it for 7 days, then how does that fit in? And then if we end up going to a system of initiative, referendum, and recall, I believe in referendum, the citizens have an opportunity to oppose something that might have been passed by the board of aldermen. So in that case, we also have to look at time-wise. So I'm almost in the opinion that maybe we should pass on this until we decide on those items like referendum and see how they might tie into this. And I'll make a motion to that.
A second.
Is there one on the floor?
Yes. Any other, so,
After your vote, I have a related item or whatever.
okay. Yeah, and I'm going to motion to pass on it until we get through the article we're dealing with initiative, referendum, and recall.
No,
Susan, second. Any other discussion on this before we take a vote? All right.
Greg Rogers,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
yes,
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Ted Nolan,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Ron Moore,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes.
All right, let's get to new business.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, oh, sorry.
That's all right. I was just thinking that the problem of a quorum not being there, whatever the reason was, and Sandy says there was a quorum for the one meeting,
There was a form for both of them.
for both meetings. So I really wonder, but I know this has happened before, where there were not quorums. And it's no reflection upon the current commission, but also the same situation with the board of zoning adjustment. And I wonder if we should set some rules in our charter that set the same guidelines or goals that we do for the board of aldermen. In other words, if you are going to be absent, you do so with permission of the rest of the member on the committee. If you miss so many in continuing flow, then you are replaced on the committee.
Mr. Chairman.
You know, Sandy, I think that when I served on the Board of Zoning Adjustments, I thought that was already in there, but maybe not. Cindy?
And it may be, but the problem that comes up is, how do I say this? There are a lot of people that like to not be in town on the weekends, or they are retired and they like to be at the lake. But I don't have a problem with people not being there unless we don't have a quorum, but I have a problem with people not letting someone know. If you're sitting there and just waiting and waiting and waiting, and, if they called City Hall and said, okay, I can't be there, then they let someone know, and Jim can let us know, then you're not gonna have a meeting, if you don't have a quorum.
And again, I would just caution everyone that if we start subdividing the exact roles of even the boards and commissions, this could be quite a lengthy document. And I would say that at least at this point in time, let's possibly look at it, but let's get through the whole document, and then if we have time to discuss it from there.
I'm not saying that we
Okay.
can put this in the document, I'm just saying that that's my opinion. If you're on a committee, even this one, they need to let somebody know if you're not gonna be there.
Okay, and I agree, and I think we should honor Greg's request that we at least look at it and as a commission and address it at some point in time.
Steve,
Yes, Ken?
also, there's a problem too with a lot of committees. Well, I will just say residents, there's not a lot of people that will serve on committees. I mean, it's really, some of them are, if they get a quorum, it's lucky.
Okay. All right.
I would disagree with that. I think it's a very debatable subject. I could bring people who have never been asked to have offered to be on committees up here, and they never get appointed. So I don't think that we have only a limited number of interested citizens in Raytown who will not step forward.
Well, this is, I think, is a discussion for another time, but I agree, Greg. I mean, I think we have a lot of individuals that would like to serve. Again, though, I would even caution, though, when you're serving on a board like the Board of Zoning Adjustments or the commission, planning commission, I mean, there's a certain level of expertise that those people need to have in order to do that job. So let's go on and move on. We're going to go ahead and continue back with Article 4 involving the mayor, and we're down to 4.4 prohibitions. And what I did when I was setting this up, and I talked with both Jason and Lisa in the fact that I think that it should be set up the same way as what we approved for the Board of Aldermen, the same prohibitions and the same vacancies, forfeitures of office. So I'm just going to read it as it is for Board of Aldermen, but replace it with the mayor. So 4.4 prohibitions, item A, holding other office, except where authorized by law, the mayor shall not hold any other city office or city employment during the term for which they were elected. And I'll open it up for discussion. If no discussion, I'll take a motion to approve it as it is.
I make a motion that we approve as is.
Second.
And I just want to comment, I believe you're consistent with what the current situation is.
All right, great. All right, so if there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote on that.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Jen Emerson,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Michael McDonald,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes.
Okay, section 4.5, vacancies, forfeiture of office, filing or filling a vacancy. Vacancy, the office of the mayor shall become vacant upon their death, resignation, removal, voter recall, forfeiture of office, or default to the city. And we'll again take these one at a time, A, B, and C. Any thoughts on that one? Again, that's worded exactly like the Board of Aldermen.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any Any other discussion? Susan?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you vote for you. Okay. Then we'll have to vote.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Janet Everson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
No.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-1. Section B, under forfeiture of office, the mayor shall forfeit office if at any time during their term they, 1, lack any qualification for the office prescribed by this charter or by law, 2, violate any provision of this charter, 3, are convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude, or 4, fail to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings of the Board of Aldermen without being formally excused by the Board of Aldermen. Yes, Susan?
I believe I read that Ted Bowman was going to find this definition of moral turpitude.
Yeah, and Ted did that when we, and Ted, if you can kind of
That's
give
what I
him.
get for missing the party.
But that's okay. I mean, he gave a very good, thorough definition of it, and again, this is the same wording that we approved for the Board of Aldermen.
And I don't know that I kept it here with me, but I think when I wrote it, I believe, yeah, and I kind of got, once I was satisfied, I wrote it, I think I sent the response to everybody, and I got it.
Well, it's like an erosion of
It has to
morals,
do,
is it not?
yes, and community standards, things like that.
Thank you.
It was reasonably specific, and there was case law involved in how it was defined in Missouri.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion on this one then? We'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Janet. Any other discussion? Lisa, can you take a vote, please? Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Janet Everson,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Jason Green,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
All right, approved 11-0. Last section regarding the mayor will be 4.4C, filling of vacancies. The mayor pro tem shall serve until the next regular municipal election established by the Missouri election calendar in accordance with state law, for which timely notice may be given for a qualified person to be elected by qualified voters to serve the remainder of the unexpired term. Any discussion? Thank you, Mike. Mike makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mary Jean. Lisa, take call.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Janet Everson,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Mark Moore,
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
All right. New article, Article 5 deals with the administration and personnel system. Most of this language is taken directly out of the MML There is one sentence that I did add. At the end of section 5.1 that was in several other charters. I think Lisa put a note on there that we can review this and possibly have a separate section that might address it for the entire charter. So when I get to that point, I'll go ahead and say that where that starts at. Anyway, section 5.1, administrative organization. And the only thing that differs in this whole article is the months of adoption. And so the Board of Aldermen shall adopt by ordinance within 12 months, is what I put, of adoption of this charter, an administrative code providing a complete plan of organization and structure of the city government. The administrative code may authorize the administrator to promulgate, promulgate regulations dealing with questions of organization and structure. The administrative code and any promulgated pursuant thereto shall be consistent with this charter. Unless otherwise required by law, all boards and commissions provided for in the administrative code shall be appointed by the Board of Aldermen or by the mayor with majority consent of the Board of Aldermen. Existing departments, agencies, authorities, and this is where I'm just adding in what some other people, other charters have added in, but existing departments, agencies, authorities, and other offices, committees, boards, and commissions shall be continued as constituted on the effective date of this charter until thereafter change pursuant to this charter or by ordinance. And, like I said, that was almost word for word out of the MML. Hopefully everybody's gotten their copy of that and have had a chance to review it. So we'll take discussion on it right now. Anybody want to address it? Seeing none, then I'll take a motion.
Yeah. I think Mr. Rader motion yet, I'll give him a second if necessary.
All right, so Jim, motion to approve? Is that correct? Is Jason second?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Any other further discussion? All right, Lisa, take a vote.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes?
Lisa Emerson, yes, Mary Jane Beth Buskirk,
Yes.
Fred Walters,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Michael McDonald,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Okay, now, what's not normally in most of the MMLs, but some people thought we probably should include, and I'll just read it, is under 5.1, item A, the administrative code may provide for the following departments, boards, and/or commissions, finance, or not, and commissions, finance department, public works department, fire department, police department, EMS department, board of zoning adjustments, planning commission, parks and recreation commission, and board of trustees of the police and firemen's retirement fund. And I guess we need to just address that.
Yeah, one of the things is the city doesn't have any control on the fire department or its retirement funds, so that they remove. Or their own board and their own tax.
So both the fire department up above Mike and then the fireman's retirement fund need to be stricken?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Ed.
If we've set out that the board has to create a plan consistent with the charter, why do we then need to go down and tell the board how to do that? I'm not sure I understand the purpose of A and B when we've given them instructions up here, and then we're going to decide what they can and can't do. instructions. I understand Mike's concern about the fire department, but this does say that they may, and in fact they may, create a fire department of their own if they wish. It would make sense in the current conditions, but someday that may be necessary. But if we make these limitations, then why don't we just write it and say these are the only boards you can have? I'm not sure I understand the need for the subsections.
And I'm in agreement with you, but it was asked to be put in, so we went ahead and put it in so that it at least can be discussed, whether or not. Did you want to go first? Go ahead, and then we'll go to you, Chris.
I was going to say more or less the same thing Ted said. I remember when you looked at this to begin with, Ted, you said it said shall, and so you changed it to may, so that they may provide for these departments if they want to, because who knows, we may need a fire department, like you said, in the future. But it doesn't say that maybe it would be easier to have a thing where they may not provide for other things. For instance, I don't know, libraries or something. Should we have an inclusive list or an uninclusive list, I guess?
Well, my thought is an uninclusive list and let the Board of Aldermen work on it.
Or no list and let the board all check on it. Because whether it's an inclusive list or an exclusive list, you're adding instructions.
Yeah, great.
I'm in agreement with what you and Ted have said. You're basically locking these commissions into place, and there's been debate up here before, like as requiring as to the role of Parks and Recreation, and quite recently, actually, with the current, well, not with this current board, but go back a couple of years where the law was changed and how it is governed and who holds the purse strings. So I think that what we're doing here, by putting in Section A, we are hamstringing the local government, being flexible in how they run their government. They may want to change the way they do that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yeah, Jim.
I'm sorry, I don't have a mic here. Can you hear me okay? So, for example, like, how does this fit into like the downtown redevelopment group that we have that oversees the downtown redevelopment? We have certain, I thought they were boards and commissions that said to lay down the rules, for example, for the city, whether you wanted to apply for TIF for downtown. Also, like, I think there's a commission that oversees the police retirement. So are those all nullified then? Are they legal, or how do they fit into this?
I don't know.
There's a number of these commissions and boards that we do have in place.
I was thinking the same thing as Jim was, because we have a council on aging that isn't on here.
Right.
In the past, they put together a property maintenance appeals board, which was in effect for quite a while, and then it was kind of disbanded, and then it came back again. So, there are times when things have to change. And I don't know that this is something we want to do right now.
Okay.
I would suggest maybe that we get a list of those that are already or currently in place and review them at least to see what we're omitting, or if indeed we do want to omit that.
I don't know how much time that would take to get that list, but,
I don't mean tonight, I mean for the next meeting.
yeah, Greg?
I just think that you're covered in 5.1. It says.
I agree. If you move right on to reading 5.2, then those two things don't matter.
All right, so,
I
I
make a
mean,
motion.
again,
Can I make a motion to
yes,
strike
Andy?
Well, they're not in there. I don't know that there's anything to strike.
Just skip.
Okay. So, and we'll move on to Anybody else want to read for a while? My throat's already done.
5.2 Personnel System. The Board of Aldermen shall adopt by ordinance within 12 months of adoption of this charter a personnel code providing a comprehensive personnel system for city officers and employees. The Personnel code shall provide that all appointments and promotion of city officers and employees shall be made solely on the basis of merit and fitness demonstrated by examination or other evidence of competence without nepotism. The Personnel code may authorize the administrator or personnel board, if one is established, to promulgate. Thank you. Regulations dealing with personnel matters. The Personnel code and any regulations promulgated pursuant thereto shall be consistent with this charter. Existing personnel policies and procedures shall be continued as constituted on the effective date of this charter until thereafter changed pursuant to the charter or by ordinance.
All right, we'll open up for comment. If there's no comment, then I would take a motion to approve.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Ted. Any other discussion? We'll call for a vote.
Jim Major,
I'm still reading this. I'll pass it and come back.
Lisa Emerson, pass. Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Mary Jane Busker,
Pass.
Susan Dolman,
Pass.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Michael McDonald,
Yes.
Ron Moore.
Yes.
For those of
And I vote no.
Yeah, I know, you do. Sure, yes. Mary Jane. Yes. Susan Dolman,
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt 5.2 personnel system 1101. Yes, Greg, go ahead.
5.2A, 2 or more departments may be headed by the same person. Directors of departments may serve as chiefs of divisions. The administrator may head 1 or more departments. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I really don't see the point in that at all.
I agree, that's the same as the other.
Right. So if it's a general consensus, we'll just go ahead and lead it off. All right, we'll move on to city clerk. Again, this was organized based on other positions. We just tried to keep some consistency in here regarding this, and so anybody want to take this one on? Go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
City clerk eligibility. The city clerk shall be appointed on the basis of their clerical qualification, shall be appointed by a majority vote of the board after receiving recommendations from the city administrator. That's 5.3.
Pretty straightforward. Any discussion on this? Yeah, Greg?
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if the city clerk is supposed to work at is the board's secretary, technically. Also has roles, works for the city too. I wonder, since the they are supposed to work closely with the city and with the city board of aldermen, or whatever, city council, whatever you decide to call in the end. Should this be something that should be an appointment that is made at the beginning of each term of office?
It's open for discussion. I mean, are you saying like every 4 years or something like that, or
Every time the new board is sworn in, which would be every 2 years.
every 2 years? So we would be, what you're suggesting is we either be reviewing or appointing this person in every 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree with Greg. I think that's just asking too much. For one thing, you'll end up losing somebody who might be good if they think they're going to maybe lose their job.
Okay, that's for 2 years, I can see that. Mary Jane, did you have?
I agree with what Sandy said.
Anybody else on this side?
I agree also. I think what we want is professionalism here at City Hall. And when if you have a constant turnover of clerks, I think it takes away from the job.
Anything?
I agree with Jim.
Okay. Okay, the only thing I might add is, again, just trying to stay consistent. Mike, would you have a problem with that saying board of aldermen versus just board? We need to make that, it's just being consistent with what we're doing. Yeah, we'll reread the final time. Go ahead, thanks.
5.3, city clerk. A, eligibility. The city clerk shall be appointed on the basis of their clerical qualification, shall be appointed by a majority vote of the Board of Aldermen after receiving recommendations from the city administrator.
Any further discussion?
Nothing noted.
Thank you, Mike. Second. Thank you, Virginia. Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion before we vote? All right. Lisa, can you take a vote, please?
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Jen Emerson,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Jim Major,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Steve Guthrie,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Jason Green,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Motion carries 12-0. Mike, you want to continue on your B, please?
5.3, city clerk. B, duties. The city clerk shall be the custodian of and have on file in their office all public city documents, shall ensure these documents are kept promptly updated and are easily available to the people for review at all times in print and electronic format. The city clerk shall keep the journal of Board of Aldermen proceedings, shall authenticate by their signature all ordinances and resolutions, and record them in full, properly indexed in a book kept for that purpose. The city clerk shall keep an updated list on file in her office designating qualified individuals that could exercise the powers and perform the duties of the city clerk during a prolonged absence, disability, or vacancy of their position. The city clerk shall perform such other duties as may be required by law, by this charter, or by ordinance.
Any discussion on this one?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Any? Yeah, who seconded? Jim? Thank you. Any other discussion? Take roll, please.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Jim Major,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Steve Guthrie.
Yes. Motion carries 12-0. Item C, compensation. You want to continue, Mike? Sure.
C, compensation. The board shall fix the city clerk's compensation by ordinance.
No, the only thing I'm not going to add by this is, I had Lisa check with Teresa on that. It appears that her annual compensation is fixed in the fiscal year budget as approved by the Board of Aldermen as a resolution. So do we want to clarify this statement, or how do we? Yeah, I just have to.
But you just said the way they do it.
Okay.
The way they do it does clarify. The board approves it, they do it through the budget process.
Sure.
Okay, yes. Susan?
I concur with Brandon. I don't think we need to strike this down any tighter than this.
Is that what you were saying, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, so leave it as the board shall fix the city clerk's compensation by ordinance.
Okay.
Good, Ted?
Wasn't your question though whether or not doing it by resolution?
What?
Is that the issue you're concerned with?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's based on, from what our understanding is that we found out, it's part of the fiscal year budget, and that is approved by resolution, is it not? Not by ordinance?
Should be.
It's by ordinance, and then as it goes through the year, they resolve through resolution.
If they're passing the budget by resolution, maybe we're looking to.
Well, all right, so, I mean, I'm just trying to get some clarification out there for everybody, so.
I agree, Greg, I think that's fine.
Okay, all right, then we'll leave it just as it is, I'm just,
Make a motion.
thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Mark?
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Lisa Everson, me, yes. Greg Walters,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Jim Major,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Mary Jane McBusker,
Yes.
Janet Everson,
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna finish up this one portion before we take a break. So I'll take a break after 5:24 since acting city clerk should be fairly easy to.
Steve?
Section D.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is, my fault. Section 5.3D. Yes, sorry, Richard.
On number C, should it not say the Board of Aldermen,
Oh, yeah,
if we're going to
Thank
keep
you.
it consistent?
yeah,
All right.
thank you.
No.
All right, section D, Mike, if you want to continue with removal.
Section D, removal. The city clerk shall hold office at the pleasure of the board. Like we put in Alderman in there, Alderman. And may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Aldermen.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Ted. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a, Greg, thanks for
No.
sorry. No, it's Susan, it was Susan.
Well, the first part of D, removal, is redundant. It's repetition of what's already in A, that says that shall be appointed by a majority vote of the board, should say of Alderman. I just don't know why it needs to be repeated down below. Simply have it read that the city clerk shall, or may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the board of Aldermen. Yes, I would like to make an amendment to that effect, please.
Okay, we have a motion of the board that's been seconded, now we're having a possible amendment. And like to have a motion and a second then. Well, I think she's taken out the words shall hold office at the pleasure of the Board of Aldermen. Is that right, Susan?
Yes.
Do you want me to read? I'll second it so we can go through it.
Could you clarify that again?
Oh, I can read it.
She's going to read it.
She didn't read it.
5.3D, this is Susan's amendment. Removal. The city clerk may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Aldermen. She's asking to take out shall hold office at the pleasure of the Board of Aldermen since they will be overlooking her to begin with. And it's redundant, she
That
says.
sounds like a lot of vote.
Yeah, Jim?
Question would be, if the city clerk would be addressed for any personnel practices, and was going to be fired, and in reality, what you're saying is that any personnel matter of the city clerk would be a matter of discussion on the Board of Aldermen, because they have to vote to remove her, so if that came in from the board, they would have to discuss why they were doing it. I'm not sure that would be a violation of the rights to do that under personnel codes. I mean, I guess I'm asking, what door are you opening here?
When I was on the city
Right.
council, we did that very thing for, I believe it was a police officer at the time. And it did come before the board, but it's not open to the public. Session.
Yes, Ted?
My career's been spent working for a fourth-class city, and the words serves at the pleasure of, at least in employment law in Missouri, it means that you can be removed without any other cause.
Yeah.
It means that there need not be due process to remove you. It means that if the board decides they want to replace you, they just vote and do it. They don't have to give you a reason. They don't have to go through due process. And the point of saying something like that is to specifically prevent what Jim talks about, and that is a due process for that particular individual. And when you're talking about an elected body hiring somebody to do a job, I think that's defensible to say that they serve with pleasure, and therefore, if we're done with you, we're done with you, and we don't have to give you a reason.
Thank you, Ted. That's very fair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I was going to say, I agree 100% with what Ted said. The position is unique, and they do serve at the pleasure of the board. It does take 2/3 majority to remove a person from that position. That is quite a hurdle to go over on a 10-member board to begin with. So somebody has to really mess up badly. One way or the other.
Having said all that, I guess my point is I speak against the amendment because I think the board should not have to answer for anything other than that 2/3 vote.
Okay. All right, so Susan did make a suggested amendment. Is that going to be a motion now then, Susan, that you want to do, or you did motion according to Lisa's notes?
Was there a second?
There's been no second yet, so
How do you feel about this, Susan?
I'd like to rescind the motion based upon Ted's explanation.
thank you. Thank you, Susan. All right, Lisa, you have a question?
Should there be anything included with city clerk or city administrator for that matter about moral turpitude? Mr. Bo?
Yeah, you don't need to use the reason.
If, well, for instance, if the Board of Aldermen thought it was okay, like the city, whatever was something, I don't know, some bad thing, and then the Board of Aldermen just didn't think it was a problem, but the rest of the population that was, like they were stealing everything from the office, I don't know. And what if the Board of Aldermen just doesn't care? I mean, should they still be held accountable to the same standards as the Board of Aldermen? They're just throwing it out there.
The board
It should, but the board doesn't enforce the law. I mean, you're probably clear.
over the employees, and that's what she is. She is not a board member, she's not a department head. She, he, whatever it is of being. So the city administrator would be the one who would bring forth any complaints to the board of aldermen, am I not correct?
She serves as the pleasure or he.
I think anybody could bring the complaint,
Right.
the board that decides.
Kind of a unique position.
He's over the departments, all the administration.
Yes, I'd be very far, you know, if you put it that way.
I read it, I just can't find it right now.
All right, so Lisa brought up other issues. How's everybody feel about that? I think it's written just as it needs to be written, quite honestly.
I think the answer to Lisa's question is the board is held responsible for
Right.
that kind of irresponsibility.
Exactly.
Make a motion.
Oh, it's already been motioned and seconded. Yeah.
I thought that was on the other.
No.
We're back to Janet motion to approve 5.3.
Janet motioned to approve 5.3D and Ted seconded. So, would you like D read again? Just,
Please.
Yes.
5.3D, removal. The city clerk shall hold office at the pleasure of the Board of Aldermen and may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Aldermen. Is that correct? Jason Green,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Mary Jane Busker,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes. All right, now we'll go to 5.4, acting city clerk. And I'll go ahead and read this. During any prolonged absence or disability of the city clerk, the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint an acting city clerk based when possible on the city clerk's filed recommendation letter. If a vacancy in the office of the city clerk occurs, the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint an acting city clerk until such time as the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint a new city clerk. Any discussion on that? Is that your hand up, Sandy?
No.
Well, I missed something, so I apologize. Yeah, Greg.
I was just going to make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
We need to
I have
reread
a
it?
question.
Yes, Andy.
So if I'm reading this right, when is the city clerk supposed to file this recommendation letter?
When they actually take office.
You know, what happens if that person's not available?
Well, I mean, it says only when possible, that's, yeah.
Okay.
We're saying that, you know, she should at least give us a list of names that she feels confident as a backup, yeah. Do we need to reread it, or just go to vote? I'll say call vote.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Mary Jane Busker,
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
All right, seeing that, I think we'll take a 5-minute recess before we get into the city administrator.
All right.
We're just missing Greg. Greg?
I think it's coming.
Aging Greg.
Boys room.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Come on down.
Yeah. Reopen August 25th meeting of the Town Charter Commission. We're going to go with section 5.5, City Administrator. And I will read the very first sentence, which I think we need to approve, and then we'll go to A and go through the list. Okay, so there shall be a city administrator appointed by a majority vote of the Board of Aldermen from a select list of qualified applicants. Board discussion. Okay, Mary Jane.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
Janet, second. Any discussion on that? That was an easy one. Greg, all we did was the city administrator, the very first line, which I'm sure you're familiar with. All right, we have a motion and a second, no further discussion. We'll take a vote.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Michael McDonald,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker.
Yes.
All right. We'll move on to 5.5A, eligibility. And the city administrator shall be appointed on the basis of their administrative qualifications. The city administrator shall reside in the city or shall have established permanent residency in the city within 6 months of their appointment and must maintain primary residency within the city during the entirety of their appointment. The city administrator shall possess all qualifications as provided by this charter or by ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
because I know Scott Pompelli, can I ask you to just strike the word administrative? We're going to appoint them based on their qualifications. Administrative qualifications, lead out leadership, and all those other things.
Lisa?
Do you think you should go back and amend 5.3A for clerical qualifications in that case?
Probably.
Okay. Would you like to make that motion?
Which one?
Let's
Let's go.
Let's continue with what we are at, and then we'll go back to the other one. All right. All right, so I'm okay with striking that administrative. I agree with that. Any other discussion? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes, Amy?
What are we striking now?
On the very first line, where it says shall be appointed on the basis of their administrative qualification, that pointed out that administrative is very limiting,
Oh, okay.
and so you would like to strike out administrative, correct?
Yes. Do we, I did not move it, I just asked.
We just still have more discussion.
If he reads it again without it, then I'll move it.
Jim?
I think that we either should allow the board to waive the residency requirement, or we should add that if they don't sell their house within 6 months, the city shall purchase that house. You can move. A lot of companies do that. Yeah, if you, when you move an employee, you have a requirement like that, you purchase a house. So I'm saying that what I really believe we should do is if the Board of Aldermen chooses, they can waive the requirement to reside in the city.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's ludicrous. When someone runs for this position, they know what the requirements are, and we'll have to deal with it.
Okay. I don't know which one had their hand up first.
You read it as
shall establish a permanent, and we have primary on here. Or is it, which is,
I must have misspoke there, I'm sorry. It should be primary.
okay.
Yes, Reggie.
Well, this is how I feel. In a perfect world, now mind you, I said in a perfect world, I think every teacher, every administrator at the school, every fireman, every policeman, anybody that works for the city ought to live within the city limits. But again, I said in a perfect world. We're not in a perfect world. Everybody has a choice of where they want to live, and I don't think we should take that choice away from them. I know there's a lot of you that disagree with me, but I'll tell you what. If I was a young professional and the stipulation was you have to live within the city of Raytown, I'd turn it down. And the main reason being, when we moved out here back in 1972, the schools were top-notch. Your kids could get an excellent education out here. They're not rated that way now. And I think it's unfair to saddle somebody with, okay, you want the job, you're more than qualified, but you're going to have to move here. I think it's unfair, and I oppose it.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, did you want, hold on one second. Greg, and then we'll go to this side. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you want to go to a perfect world, go to Independence. They have the same requirement, and it's not a problem there. They have it in Kansas City, it's not a problem there. In fact, if you check, almost every city has this requirement, and it works there. If you're a member of the Independent School Board Administration, you have to live within the Independent School District. It is not overly arbitrary. It is what is expected, and they know when they move into that position. I have a young neighbor. I have a neighbor whose daughter went to work for the school district at Independence, and she moved specifically to Independence for her position. She wanted to. As far as the schools, Independence had some of the worst schools in the world over on their west side. They took them away from the Kansas City School District, brought them into the Independent School District, and now all of a sudden, their grade point average is shot up through the roof.
Ours has.
Where?
I said ours hasn't.
I know ours hasn't, and there's probably a problem with the way it's being administered, but we're not addressing that. We should not be treating our city administrator any different than they are anywhere else. And everywhere else, they are required to live within the city. Just about. I mean, I'm sure you can find some exceptions, but they're going to be rare.
Yes, Jason.
I've done a little bit of research on this topic in general, and of the charter cities in Missouri, I have yet to find one that doesn't have a stipulation on residency for the city administrator. Now, being said, you know, I know some folks are under the impression that everyone under city staff should have that, you know, residency requirement. I don't happen to share that, but I do believe that for the city administrator, you are the head of the city offices, the head of all the departments. With that type of position and the monetary contribution and such, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that they live within our city. Like I said, and I don't view it as that controversial. Like I said, I've done my research on this for the past few months. I've looked at almost every charter, and I've seen the city administrator within the charter is required to live within the city limits of those particular cities. Now, I see different stipulations on, like, you know, finance director and all these other ones where they're required to live, but they can be waived by the board. I've seen those for other positions, but for the city administrator and the other charters I've seen in Missouri, I've seen residency requirements. So, again, I don't view that as this controversial, if you will.
All right, anybody else on this side? Mark?
Greg and Jason pretty well hit the nail on the head. I view it as this, that if you're the city administrator, Ted brought up the word leadership, leader, you know, you should be in town, you should be meeting people, spending your money here, et cetera, et cetera. If I was a CEO of GM and I drive a Ford to work, that kind of looks a little different, you know. They don't quite go for that. So, you know, at least that's my opinion. I appreciate the way Greg and Jason explained the way I think.
All right.
Well, number one, we're not Raytown, we're not Kansas we're gonna be cutting down our candidates, so to speak, if Mahesh should leave, and we make the stipulation, I think we're gonna be cutting down our field of candidates tremendously. I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Sandy? Anything on what you Susan?
Personally, I feel that they should live in the city. I will tell you when I put my phone number in the paper, I had several calls. One of them was very adamant about it should be the person who can do the job best, whether they live in the city or not. I told her I'd put that out here, and you guys can chew on that for a while.
Okay, Susan?
I think it's a point of, a reasonable point of pride of the future of the city, that we have a city administrator who is invested, personally invested in Raytown's future direction, and demonstrates that by actually living in and participating, as well as participating in the direction of the city.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to add one more thing. I remember when Rick Maherter became fire chief, and he actually lived, I think, in Blue Springs, but his requirement in order to become fire chief in Raytown was that he had to move to Raytown. Because I designed and built this house because just specifically for that Raytown, for that requirement. And I don't know if it's still required of the fire chief. I think it is. But if it's required for the fire chief, and we've got an excellent fire chief again. I think chief of police is the same way. And my thoughts are, when you have this requirement in here, you're going to get people that look at the possibility of the position more than the location of where it is. And I know when I moved to Raytown, and people ask me why, and I told them very specifically why I moved here. I'm actually for residency requirements. So, Jason.
And I'd like to say that, I'm happy with the situation we have in terms of, the city administrator we have. My view on this is not any reflection on his leadership at all. It's just what I think it should be at the cornerstone of this community. I really do. I've had a lot of folks talking about this. It's something that I believe in. When I first found out a few years ago it wasn't the case, I was frustrated with it personally just because it's also a pride issue for me. Being said, and this is just a point of consideration to throw out there, maybe this type of, I think his board will decide, but maybe this type of question should be left up to the voters on this charter, in that have it as a pull-out question possibly. So that could be something maybe to consider, or again, I'll go with the direction of the board on that, but that is something just to throw out there to think about.
My personal thoughts on that, I would prefer not to have pull-out questions, but any other comments from the MI?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry. Go to Jim.
First of all, I don't think anybody loves the city more than I do. I've educated children, I've served on this board, I've been a resident in here for 47 years. I'm going to be buried in the city, in the only cemetery we actually have in this, which is Mount Albert. And ideally, yes, I agree that I really would want everybody to reside in the city. But what I really want the most is I want a city government that's professionally run the very best it can. And when we get ready to hire people, I've been in many closed sessions where we hire them, and I've watched many good employees come and go. And actually, what we've really seen in the last 10 years is this has been kind of a melting pot, or maybe that's not the you should write in there also that we will pay the same that all the other cities do. The truth is, we don't pay, we're never in the middle, if we do want to stay there that long. And the amount of money that it takes to keep someone here is a lot, and it's going up. Not just for city administrators, but even for policemen. Even the police department has come to us and said, we are losing officers because we are so low. The last city administrator that was hired, that was required to live here, was chosen by a select few people on the board and fired shortly after he got here because the guy did not perform well. And during that time, we had really devastating things, setbacks that happened in the city. I don't think, man, I would hate to think that anyone in this charter committee would say, that's okay, he lives here. As long as you live here, we don't care how he performs. As opposed to hiring the top professionals. Now, the question is this. Do we pay enough to hire anyone or someone that's, obviously other cities are going to go out after to come here? Because we have to compete. I might also add, compare Independence, that's great. But in Independence, you can live in Independence and go to Blue Springs. You can't live in Raytown and go to Blue Springs. You can't live in Raytown and go to anywhere else but Raytown. You can live in Lee Summit and go to Blue Springs. Because their school districts cross city lines. And they are also not cities that are stuck within circumscribed bounds. We have nowhere for growth. You can buy new housing. We don't have such neighborhoods in Raytown. So when you look at, and even the number of applicants that we're getting for almost any job here, and I don't know about the police department, but I think they're having a little bit of difficulty too. I remember, I think Chief Lynn's saying that, because they go for the top quality. They don't go after just any policeman. They want the best. And that's the same thing that I think you want that's going to serve the city. I think it's a very big issue. So I think at the very least it should be pulled out. But I think it would be a major issue that might determine whether this charter would either pass or fail. I do believe that.
Mr. Chairman, yes, this isn't just any job. This is the city administrator. And as for pay, I believe there's going to be a lot of frickin' applicants that want to get paid over $140 grand a year. They'll come to this town looking for that salary. We're not just hiring somebody to mow the grass or anything. This is the cornerstone, as Jason Green explained, of this town. If you don't want to live here, then go get a job somewhere else. But I guarantee you, and I know some public people, they'll come here for $140,000 a year and all the perks. They'll move here, and there's a lot of nice places to live here, Jim. More than you described. I live in a kind of a so-so neighborhood, but there's some nice places here. It's a nice town. If you don't want to work here and live here as a city administrator, go to Independence and see if you can get hired. Go to Kansas City, go to Blue Springs, go to Iola, Kansas. To me, live here, you're paid well, you want that position, live here. That's all I have to say.
Kevin?
Forgive me here, but some of these arguments have to be thrown out. Comparing the city administrator to first responders, especially line officers, not as flawed on its face, because we do require that people have to be able to get to work within a certain time. There's a difference between hiring 60 police officers and requiring that they be in 10 square miles and hire one city administrator. There's a big difference there. I can see why it is a smaller city, and I can see that the size of the city might make a difference, but the comparison to other cities is something that happens in this room on a regular basis and is almost always a flawed argument because of the difference between the cities. That doesn't make it wrong, however. For the record, having tossed all this out here, I personally believe that the city administrator ought to live in the city. We've only had 3, by the way. And the first 2 chose to move here because they felt that it was part of the job. No, you're right, they were required. Yeah. I'm sorry. But I think that's okay when you're talking about one position. I also think it's okay for us to set those rules and decide one way or the other. And I think that a number of us have probably come here because we've already heard what the people that, at least the people that we asked for support from, said. I think it's okay to put it in the charter. I think though that argument about first responders and comparing to other cities is for this is as flawed as it has been for the other things that it's been.
All right. I'm going to get it with Mike first, and then we'll go to the side. Go ahead, Mike.
I also believe that the city administrator should have to live here. It is a leadership position. As Jim was talking about neighborhoods, if you have somebody that lives here, they're going to be more interested in what goes on here. It's not just a job. They need to have some ownership in living here. They are the leader of the city, administrative leader of the city, and for the money they pay them, for their knowledge, they should have to be here, where they can see what goes on day in and day out, buy their groceries here, buy their gas here, and know what's going on with their neighbors and all the other people in the city. So, Jason, I think every head of every department needs to live here that's not voted in, but I do believe the city administrator definitely needs to live here.
All right, Greg, and then
I was just going to point out we had 4 city administrators. County 11 currently have 3 previous, all moved to the city of Raytown from where they lived previous. One moved from East Summit, one moved from Colorado, another one moved from a little county up in northern Michigan, is where it came from. And the point is that was the rules that they were hired under. They accepted it, and I'm not going to sit here and judge who did a good job or who did a bad job, but we've had some good leadership here from those who did move here to the city. And I know we went through Kirk Wentz's one I can think of in particular. We didn't always agree. However, I will say when we had emergencies, Kirk was on hand. He was here immediately because he only lived a couple miles away. It's important.
Mary Jane.
I believe that it is now required of the city administrator to live within the city. They have just given, what do you want to call it, an exemption or whatever, by the board. But it is written in there that the city administrator does need to live within the city limits. But he was given an exemption by the board, so I don't know that, you know.
Wasn't that in 1997?
He was given 2 or 3 exceptions.
Right.
And, yeah.
This contract is what's up here.
And this is actually a promise he'd move here.
All
All right.
Perhaps then we should include the language that states that it's without exception.
I think we're pretty much saying that, Susan. But, okay. All right, one more comment. Well, 2 more on this end, and we're going to call for a vote, because I think we got some consistency. Go ahead, Susan. Sandy.
I have a problem with Flint making this pull out. We had, and I can't remember how many on the last charter, but it was part of the reason that it did pass. It's very confusing to some people. Some people work out through it fine, and other people didn't understand why it was that way, so.
All right, Jim.
And I agree with that. I would just share with you that there are a lot of finance directors, people in public works that make a lot more than our city administrator does. You see that we even have assistant administrators and assistant finance directors that are making more than we're paying ours. So, and in fact, if we do this, we're going to see our city administrator's salary leap way up in order to compete to get when they actually move here. happening in the job market today?
I think I'm gonna change professions. Yeah, Jason, one last comment,
Yeah, sorry.
because
And
I'm
again,
gonna,
I mentioned the plot just as a suggestion, not that I'm really 100% behind that or not, but I just want the board to consider that.
all right. I think, I'm gonna take a motion to, approve it with the word striking of administrative before qualifications. Second. All right, and Jason seconds. And we'll vote on it this way, and if it doesn't get approved, we'll try to address it another way. Any other discussion before we take the vote? One last comments? Lisa, call the roll.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Chairman, can she reread that?
I'm sorry. Yes, I can. 5.5A, eligibility. The city administrator shall be appointed on the basis of their qualifications. The city administrator shall reside in the city or shall establish primary residency in the city within 6 months of their appointment, and must maintain primary residency within the city during the entirety of their appointment. The city administrator shall possess other qualifications as provided by this charter or by ordinance.
Now I'll make the motion.
Second.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yeah.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Jim Asia.
No.
Charlotte Nelson. No. Greg Walters.
Yes.
Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes?
Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
No.
And just to clarify, Jim was there as well.
Jim?
Jim.
Vote, right.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Sandy, did you pass, or did you?
She voted yes.
Okay, okay, thanks. All right, so motion does pass with a vote of 10-2. We'll move on to section B. I'll read the first part, and then we will go through powers and duties. Section B, powers and duties. The city administrator shall be responsible to the Board of Aldermen for the management of all city affairs placed in the city administrator's charge or under this charter. The city administrator shall have the following powers and duties. All right, we'll go through each one of the responsibilities or duties individually. So right now, while we're just saying this, that they shall have these following powers or duties. Any discussion of this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
You struck a word, you said charge, did you strike the word by out of that? When you read it? Second line, the city administrator is charged by or under this charter.
We also need to put in there Board of Aldermen to keep it consistent.
We did. Who seconded it? Mike. Yeah, Mike seconded. Lisa, can you please read the information chance?
B, powers and duties. The city administrator shall be responsible to the Board of Aldermen for the management of all city affairs placed in the city administrator's charge by or under this charter. The city administrator shall have the following powers and duties.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll take a vote.
Jim Asia.
Yes.
Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Greg Walters.
Yes.
Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes.
Motion passes 12-0. Okay. The first item is coordinate and generally supervise the operation of all departments, both line and staff, except as otherwise specified by this charter, by ordinance, or by state. State law, I'm sorry. Any discussion on this one? It's pretty much included in almost every one that I've read.
Make a motion to
Second.
And approve. Just, or one.
Lisa Merson, yes. Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Greg Walters.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Steve Guthrie.
Yes.
Mary Jane Busker.
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Jim Asia.
Yeah.
Charlotte Nelson. Janet Emerson.
yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Susan Dolan. If I could
Yes.
just, thank you, sorry. If I could just reread it to make sure that,
Yes.
yeah, thanks, sorry. One. Coordinate and generally supervise the operation of all departments, both line and staff, except as otherwise specified by this charter, by ordinance, or by state law.
We'll go on to number 2. Make recommendations of appointments and removal of department heads and division supervisors under their direction and supervision for the approval of the Board of Aldermen.
So moved. Second.
Ready? Motion, right?
Steve, or, sorry, it was Mr. Asia, and I say. That's what I heard.
Steve,
Yes.
should that not be and slash or? For the appointments and or removal?
No, I mean, I wrote it just as it was written in other charters. So.
Sure.
Yes, Dan.
Do we really want to go below the level of department head as far as the Board of Aldermen handling personnel issues?
Well, this isn't the Board of Aldermen, it's the city administrator.
But it says he brings them to the,
Okay.
it specifically says here to bring them to the Board of Aldermen for their approval. And my question is, once you go below the level of the department head, doesn't the personnel plan that we've already required kick in?
So, I'm sorry, Steve, I interject here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So are you suggesting maybe, Mr. Bowman, that we, eliminate
And
and division supervisors?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say remove department heads under the direction and supervision of the approval. Yeah, okay.
Is this a formal?
Is there a motion on the floor?
There's,
Then I'll motion to amend.
okay.
We can't hear all the mumbling over there.
Yeah, I know.
I don't even know what's going on.
Okay. All right, so right now, it was read, motioned, and seconded as it was originally read, and Ted made a motion.
Following motion to
Remove.
eliminate the words "and division supervisors" from the motion as it's made.
All
I'll
right.
second that.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Greg?
my question is, how do we identify our department heads?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just don't know. We have some departments where there's one person, I would assume that's a department head. And
Is that correct? Is that,
I'm correct when I'm looking at you, but I probably shouldn't.
Well, that's all right, you can look here if you want.
I really think that maybe this is one case where we should be, of course, the problem is each administration comes in, we see the wheel reinvented. I just don't know which are department heads and which are not.
Is it where name tags?
Well, I think there was, we also just finished a part where there's a requirement that the city, that the Board of Aldermen, creates a plan for how the departments are arranged.
Right.
And I would assume that it would be addressed in there. Yes. If you make the remark that the department heads under the direction and supervision of the city administrator, then you have to plan for that when you make that plan.
Perhaps we should refer to the chart as created by the administration.
Well, that or just suggest that those make recommendations of appointments and removal of those persons directly under their direction and supervision.
That might be, I can remember an instance when Sandy was, I think she was on the board at the same time too. We had our director of EMS was he department head. He pretty much got treated as one.
Yeah.
When he was let go. But it was ultimately the decision of the you weren't there when that happened. Okay, well, it came to the board's approval to make the move. I'll put it that way. So that would probably rest in the hands of the administrator at the time, because a wise administrator would make sure that the board that he works for agrees with what he plans to do.
And my only concern is the number of things that we ask the board to rule on as far as personnel issues. And I realize maybe it's just a matter of words. I just don't want to put us in a position where we're saying that the board has to approve discipline or the hiring and firing of anybody other than the people that directly report to them.
Mike,
You follow that?
I do.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we don't have a situation arrive where somebody can hide
Right.
that you have a bad apple and you want to be rid of the bad apple, but you can't because in this charter it says it's got a department head and maybe it's not.
Yeah.
So, and it may have the same clout as a department head. Because the board, I mean, a proactive board, in my opinion, members would become aware and would see a problem and say, fix it.
Right. And that's what we're looking for, is that the administrator be held to accountable for fixing. And again, I'm not opposed to the board saying, hey, this particular police officer seems to be a problem. Why do we keep hearing about it? When are you going to do something about it? I think that's perfectly reasonable. I'm just concerned about the requirement here that discipline beyond what you and I understand now as department heads has to come before the board.
Removal of department heads is spelled out in the city's organization chart or whatever.
I think that would probably.
Did we name it in that earlier section we referred to?
We did not say anything about department heads. We said to create a plan.
Well, if that's the case, Ted, I don't mean to interject, but number 3, power of appointment of all other subordinate employees of the city.
But it doesn't require they go to the board, is the only thing I'm concerned.
yeah. Well, and as long as it says that they have to abide, I mean, in one, we're saying that they have to abide as things specified by this charter, by ordinance, or by state law. So if we're already saying by this ordinance, and we have it in the ordinance under the personnel code or under the administrative code, then it should be covered, correct?
That's my point, unless you say and division supervisors.
So, Michael, you had something that you wanted to?
No, thank
You're
you.
good? Okay, so,
Well, that brings us back to the amendment. I'm not sure, because I agree, Greg, with the idea that the flap with that particular supervisor that had in fact become a department head.
Jim?
Just trying to follow the conversation here. We're talking about the city administrator's responsibility.
That's correct.
And I think what Ted's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, that it's not just division supervisor, but should this be under the supervision of the Board of Aldermen? Do they have to make that final decision? Is that what you're?
Yes,
It's really not the board.
Yes, for anything
Board
other than,
participation, not to make what he does.
it's the board participation I'm concerned about for anything other than a department head.
Right, and that's what I.
But Greg's point is that the department head is not defined. It's not defined here. It's not defined in the plan. And the only thing that we would be relying on by taking those words out is that that board that has to deal with this recognizes that they have to create something called a department head that reports only to the city administrator.
I would think if, in order to comment what you want, you would just take out with approval of the Board of Aldermen.
Would you be okay with the board not approving a department head being terminated?
I think now we do that. I'm pretty sure that he can remove a department head. We've done that. At least one that I know of, without the board approval. So I would be okay if he can hire him, why can't he fire him?
Well, I think though, don't we say that he has to, a department head, he has to get approval from the Board of Aldermen?
Well, they have to be approved by resolution, but.
Right, so I mean, you almost have to disapprove.
Yeah.
Second way.
Yeah. But I don't see why he has to have the approval of the bottom.
Lisa?
Is this something that we should specify maybe in 5.1 or 5.2 with the administration of personnel systems, where we didn't define the departments, but we need to define what a department head is, perhaps? Maybe we can work on that and come back to it.
Greg, you're right, you know something. You got it.
No, I was just gonna say, we could say remove of departments heads designated in the city's, I don't know, charge. I don't know, we used to have one, a structure that showed, who was in charge where. When I was on board, I don't know if they still do that or not. A management chart, and it identified, the different departments and who was in charge. My concern goes a little bit further because now we have some departments that are essentially one person. And I don't know if you can count them as a division supervisor, or just say they're supervisors themselves, but they have a purpose that is unique to the city that nobody else does. Mr. Cole's a good example.
Does the board approve that?
Those appointments?
That appointment, yeah.
We used to approve the chart of the organization of the city.
And that's part of the budget process.
Well, not only that, but also, we also approved the chart, the organization of the city as to how it functioned.
Independent of the budget process, the planning process.
Yeah, pretty much.
If the board is expected to approve the hiring of a particular individual, would they not have a say in determining whether or not termination is
Yeah,
ordered?
I think that's what his point was.
Yeah, that was my point, so. I mean, I'm okay with just taking out and division supervisors. I mean, to get back to it, and because, I think the board could be overburdened with too much, management of this portion of it, so. And if you have a division supervisor that stands by himself, just make him a department head, and then do what you want with him. But, so. We have a motion then by Ted, or amendment to the motion to strike out the words and division supervisors. So Lisa, go ahead.
It is second.
We will need a second.
Ted's amendment says 2, make recommendations, appointments, and removal of department heads under their direction and supervision for the approval of the Board of Aldermen. Is that correct?
Yes, as long as there is spelled to show possession.
Right.
Why is it,
T-H-E-I-R.
is it not?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
He's meant.
all right, so I should take a vote.
So we have a motion and a second. Now, this is a motion and a second to strike the words out of this, and then we'll have to actually vote it in, correct?
Correct.
All right,
This is
that's
a
what we
motion to
got.
strike and the quote, and division supervisors.
All right.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Greg Walters,
Yes.
Jim Baker,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
And then we go back to the main motion, as motioned by Jim and seconded by Jason.
As amended.
As amended,
So it's
so
the
it's the
same.
same thing. Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Greg Walters,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
All right. Item 3, power to appoint and remove all other subordinate employees of the city who are subject to their possessive direction and supervision.
Motion to approve.
Second.
How's the discussion for a second?
She needs discussion so that she has time to get it. Okay. Ted?
Yes.
Motion. Jim, second. We'll give her a second to get brought up. Any other board discussion is, it might be. Brother. So item 3, I'm going to read it for you. Power to appoint and remove all other subordinate employees of the city who are subject to their direction and supervision. Take a vote.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Jason Green,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson, Greg Walters,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Jim Asia.
Yes.
Motion carries 12-0. Item 4, attend all Board of Aldermen meetings and shall be able to take part in discussion if necessary, but shall not vote. Board discussion.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Jim. Any other discussion? Yes, Sandy?
You're saying all department heads?
No, we're on item
City
4.
administrator, I'm sorry. I got lost there for a minute. Too many things.
If no other further discussion, I'll reread it. Attend all Board of Aldermen meetings and shall be able to take part in discussion if necessary, but shall not vote.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Greg Walters,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Item number 5, prepare and submit a recommended annual budget and 5-year capital improvement program to the Board of Aldermen to achieve the goals of the city.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Yeah, Greg?
What is the 5-year capital improvement program?
It's just a forecasting, I guess, of the things that we're asking them to look forward into the things that they would anticipate need to be done within the city so that money can be,
Is that currently being done?
I think so.
Public Works?
Public, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All right, you ready to read?
5, prepare and submit a recommended annual budget and 5-year capital improvement program to the Board of Aldermen to achieve the goals of the city. Greg Walters.
Yeah, those are,
There's a discussion.
yeah, I mean,
I just, my question about that is, I think it's a great idea, and I'm always wanted to see a 5-year capital improvement program. But to do that every year, I would like to question that. For example, it's almost impossible for us to put any money towards things like street lights, sidewalks, storm sewers, and those are the areas that are most needed in the city, and that's what people ask for. We hear that most often, just because our budget isn't such. And what we're seeing in the last 5 years is that salaries are growing faster at a faster rate than what our income is. Because our income has been relatively stable. Even when we have a few new businesses come, we have to lose them. So, our overall budget really hasn't increased. So I just question why would we be doing it every year forever? There's not really a budget to do that.
well, I mean, to me, it's something that gets addressed every year. Some things might fall off, some things might get added. I mean, to me, it's like a construction schedule. I mean, I put together a 9-month construction schedule for a project, but I also put together a 3-week schedule so that I know exactly what has to happen, and things do change, based on weather conditions and things like that. So I'm thinking that, my thoughts on the 5-year capital campaign is, our capital improvement program is that we at least try to identify the areas that we'd like to address, and maybe at some point in time we can begin to do that, but, in reality, that might change every year, and I think it needs to be addressed every year.
And I agree. I'm not disagreeing with the 5-year plan. Maybe I should say I agree with the 5-year capital improvement plan, but the 5-year economic plan overall is what I've asked for when I was finance director. I thought we needed a 5-year plan economically with finances to see how we were going, a long range term. There were times that we executed certain goals that if we paid them all off, we would be bankrupt. So they had to all be advanced. So that's why I felt that the 5-year plan was important. What we're saying is that we're going to contribute X number of dollars or a significant amount. I think you're getting taxpayers' hopes up. When you come up with a plan that say we're going to have so many street lights, sidewalks, and that money is never going to be there. In significant amount of money to make a little difference. I'll just give you one example. Storm sewer is a really worse problem. They did a study that showed that if we put X number of dollars in the next 99 years, actually I introduced a 4% sales tax specifically earmarked for storm water. And we knew in 99 years it would never solve our problem. That's how many problems we have. So oftentimes we get calls from my constituents to say, I've got this problem. They just have to come out and say, we have no money earmarked for storm water at all, because it's never going to be in the budget. And people don't want to hear that, but it's true. And the same way with streetlights. That's been a standing argument, but the fact is, every time you put one up, you got to pay the bill forever.
Wasn't there a sewer bond put out in, when was it, Jimmy? I think you were around on that one. Was it 205?
It was a bond. That was a bond.
It was a general obligation bond, I believe. That bond was issued, the city borrowed, let's see, that was through Jeffries and Company out of Wall Street. The interest rate on that sewer bond, let's see,
let me step back a little bit. I'm just gonna fill you in on what I've learned about that sewer bond, A and B. That bond was for $2.25 million. The interest on that bond was $1.4 million. So the city got to use, I don't know, not very much money to fix the street. So whoever negotiated that bond didn't do a very good job. Because most of the funds were used up on the interest side, payback, and that's where debt accumulates. That's why we can't get anything done, because debt just keeps on rolling over. So, I agree with you. We need some work done on the cities and the streets. I just want to clarify something. Sewers and stormwater are not the same. We had many clay pipes that were collapsing that we absolutely had to address. We didn't have a choice. That's why we had to get them fixed.
Right.
So that's why we ended up with not such a good deal. I don't agree.
Okay, hold on. I've got other people that want to talk. Rick Jason.
No, I think, this is Young and I are having kind of a sidebar conversation here a little bit ago, but first off, a lot of this forecast, I think this is really a forecast, is what maybe, I think some people are thinking it's like a budget, if you will, and that's not the intent at all. It looks like a forecast. I mean, we get this from Public Works already. I mean, it's not like, that you have to go by this 5-year plan, if you will. I think it's the concept, I mean, if we need to reword it, that's fine, but the concept to me states that, here's the goals for capital improvements in the city in the next 5 years. So again, I have no issue with that. I wanted to kind of bring this back into what this is about, instead of talking about stormwater and stuff, but anyway.
I want to finish this one. Any other discussion? Yes, Ed.
The requirement here is a capital plan. And some of the points have been discussed here about the way those things are handled. The point, I think, when you do a budget, one of the things we've learned doing budgets here in the city is that you don't do it year by year. You have to do that in order to get business done, but only as it relates to a longer-term plan. If you can't say where you're going with this year's budget further down the line, then perhaps that budget is just plain that can't get through 1 year. The budgeting process is supposed to be about planning for the future. If you don't have the money and you can't deal with increasing some service or doing some work, and you have to have some plan for addressing what are you going to do about it. And so the plan is not so much a matter of how much money we're going to throw at it, but where we're going to find money, how we're going to throw at it, that's what's important. And that's the basis upon which we vote what people's very carefully.
Right, and that's a program.
Yes, and I think the requirement to have that program so that people can see it is legit.
All right, I think we've had that discussion on this. I'd like to, is there a motion now?
Yep, Greg Walters,
Yes.
Sandra Arnold,
Yes.
Steve Gardner,
Yes.
Ted Velman,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yeah.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
John Moore,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Jenna Anderson,
Yes.
Lisa Anderson, yes.
Motion passes on item 5. We will continue with item 6 at our next meeting. If there's no other opposition, we'll be adjourned. Being done. Thank you all. We did well tonight again. I have what?
The last two, well, this one and the two before is what,
Well, this one only has one of the action